Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be back. For those of you who don't know, I spent the last week on a trawler coming from Alaska down to Seattle. And yes, I got to be the captain, and yes, we didn't hit anything, and yes, we saw some whales, and it was really wonderful. But to the order of business this morning, we can share that later. I want to just bring you up to date on some important things that are going on if you take a glance at the industry over the last couple of weeks. One of the things you always have to be aware of is the Inman News Innovator Awards. And what makes this year interesting is that the Innovator Award went to the young man who is the head of a company called .net. And his whole product is transaction management. You know, transaction management has been around the industry for about 15 years, but finally we have come together with this idea that profitability, productivity, and transaction management are all the necessary components. They all go together. And so having Inman recognize Austin Allison from .net as their Innovator of the Year is a big deal. It sort of shows us where we're going. There's a number of other award winners that we'll talk about, but the important thing is that they all speak to the technology side. They all speak to mobile technology. They all talk about the fact that the real estate internet connection is increasing and not decreasing, and so that's an important issue. With that, then, we go back to what we've been talking about for the past 2 years, and that is measuring the increased rate of change within this industry. Perhaps one of the most shocking things that we have been involved in the last 30 days is in Canada. We have about 400 clients in Canada, and the Canadian Real Estate Association, known as CREA, has over the past 18 months been promoting a program, and they've now come out with their recommendation. Essentially, 18 months ago, they announced that organized real estate in Canada, which is the same model we have, simply is no longer functional, and that the real estate industry in Canada is losing public favor with the Canadian real estate consumer, and that something has to be done about it. And they have spent the last 18 months putting together this program. They're now building support for that program and hope to go to a vote in Winnipeg in November, which is essentially going to reorganize the entire Canadian real estate industry. And we're involved in a piece of that puzzle that's going to be happening in November. I offer this just to point out to you that all the things that we've been doing here, we still have people in our community who say nothing is changing, nothing is going on. We're awash with change. Nobody is talking about the future anymore. People are talking about it's happening now. Which then takes us to the Pinnacle Group. I was really pleased that the board agreed to function in the Pinnacle Group. But as you know, the Pinnacle Group is a program that I put together, Jim Sherry and I put together with Stefan Swanepoel, and it's co-sponsored by the National Association of Realtors, and it is essentially a program to take every association that signs up to participate exactly or pretty close to what you've been doing for the past 18 months. So for all of you who are thinking about, you're going to be professors now, because what you've been doing for the last 24 months now is what they're all going to have to do over the next 24 months. There's just a recognition of the fact that the traditional organized real estate model is simply not functioning, and it's going to have to function. So the Pinnacle Group now has 47 associations signed up. That's a nice mix from the largest to the smallest, nice mix across the country. But what's interesting is that 1,000 other associations simply decided that they didn't need to change. That everything you could tell, they say, oh, we're doing just fine. And the answer is, no, they're not. They're not doing just fine. They're losing members, they're losing generations, they're losing brokerage support. The bottom line is they're not doing fine at all. But there's 47 associations that make up some 300,000 people who have decided to move forward, and I think that's what counts. So going back to the big picture, same thing we're focused. This association is really where it needs to be. And what we're seeing, again, the major theme in the industry is the diminishing role of the traditional brokerage business model. That's the first thing. It is no longer it's not turning a market level profitability. It's not using technology effectively. It just needs to be revamped, and that's where the major theme of the industry is going right now. The second theme is the rising power of the real estate consumer. We're no longer in control of our own organization. Today, the consumer is essentially in charge, and they're saying, here's what we want. And so what we're seeing is that our organizations like Zillow and Trulia are now the competitors. And they're not because they're incredibly bright, but because they're giving the consumers what the consumers want. That's just that simple. Because they're saying, this is what we want on the menu. Zillow and True are saying, here it is. Organized real estate and the traditional brokerage business model is still saying, well, we don't see it that way. And that's the problem. So the question is, who's going to change and who's going to fade away, and who will power this new brokerage business model? And that's really an exciting, and that's really the exciting thing. So whether you're looking at what happened in San Francisco at Inman, what's happening in Ottawa with the Canadian Real Estate Association, what's happening in Chicago with NAR and the Pinnacle Group, or what's happening out there in the industry, no matter how you look at it, we are in the final days of the last era and the beginning days of a whole new era. And the most important thing is that because of your work over the last 18 months, you are prepared for the new era. That's what's exciting.